Welcome to the Wild Magic Yarns podcast, where threads and tales are freely cast. We stitch and weave with joy in mind, discovering crafts of every kind. So grab your needles and take a seat in our world where crafts and stories meet. Each episode's a journey grand in the land of yarn where magic's planned.
Hello and welcome to the Wild Magic Yarns podcast. I'm your host Charlotte and I'm thrilled to have you join me on my latest woolly adventure. In this podcast I'll be sharing my love of all things yarn, delving into the fascinating world of fibre arts, reviewing the latest yarns and patterns and much more. Whether you're a seasoned crafter or just beginning your yarn adventure, there'll be something here for everyone. Join me as we explore the magical world of yarn, one stitch at a time. Welcome to Wild Magic Yarns. Today I'll share a bit about myself and how yarn became my obsession. Next, I'll be sharing what I'm knitting at the moment, as well as how I found inspiration in the pages of the Simple Things magazine, a publication that embraces the beauty of slow living and handcrafted creations. I also want to mention a controversial topic that gets everyone talking. I'll drop in a quick yarn review at the end. But before we dive in, an introduction. I'm Charlotte, the creative force behind Wild Magic Yarns. I live in a small village in southwest Wales where the rolling hills and rich colours of nature inspire me every day. I share a little bungalow with my husband, our son, 2 dogs and 4 cats. I absolutely adore animals, and if I wasn't disabled, I'd definitely have sheep and alpaca by now. I'm still debating how I can sneak a couple of yarn seeds in the shape of Angora rabbits in somehow. I am a primary school teacher, but since I started using a wheelchair, I moved to curriculum development and tutoring adult learners online. However, I was made redundant on Christmas Eve, so now I'm dyeing yarn for a living. I've only just started out, so it's not much of a living yet, but hopefully I can make it into a career that will at least pay my bills. My journey with yarn began 37 years ago when I was 5 years old. Yes, I am that old. And it's been a love affair ever since. I was taught to knit by my late grandmother, and remember my little plastic pink needles clicking together as I worked tiny rows of garter stitch, making blankets for my Sylvanian families. I did more knitting as I got older, teaching some of my girl guides how to knit, and when I had my son, who is now nearly 17, I decided to start making him baby clothes and knitted longies, which are woolen trousers for cloth nappy wearing babies. It was then I discovered hand-dyed yarn from baby long legs, and I learnt to crochet, became rather obsessed, and now I also spin and dye my own yarn, and I dabble in sewing, cross-stitch, just any craft really. Well, apart from polymer clay, which for some reason is my nemesis. I just cannot do it, and I have huge admiration for people who can. Have you seen the stitch markers from Chapel View Crafts? If not, I urge you to check them out. The Tiny Beans on Toast is a masterpiece. What draws me to yarn is its endless possibilities. Each skein holds the potential for something unique and personal. The creativity of the different colourways blows my mind, and I love the sense of accomplishment that comes with completing a project. For me, yarn isn't just a material, it's a source of joy, relaxation, and endless inspiration. So, what am I making at the moment? For anyone who follows me on Instagram or YouTube, you'll know that I failed miserably at knitting a Gansey for my dad's 70th birthday. I'm still plugging away at this traditional fisherman's sweater, and hopefully I'll finish it by his next birthday. I'm still planning on talking about the history of Ganseys, on a future podcast as well. I will probably do that on YouTube as well as on here so I can have some visuals. Currently, on my other needles are a pair of socks. So I decided to participate in a knit along hosted by Roro and Cades, who you can find on Instagram, YouTube, and Etsy. The knit along is called the Cosy Toes KAL, and to join in, you knit a pair of socks every other month using the selected pattern for that month from Roro and Cades. January's pattern is the Storm Seeker socks, and it is a gorgeous zigzaggy lacy pattern that I absolutely love. I'm using the Christmas colourway by Spectrum Fibre, and the pattern is working really nicely with the colours. If you finish the socks by February the 28th, there's a chance to win a prize. If this sounds up your street, you still have over a month to cast on, and there's a cheeky pattern discount code that you can find on Kelly's Instagram. I'm knitting my pair 2 at a time, which I've only done a couple of times before, and I've always done toe up. This time I'm doing cuff down, so I'm wondering how it all works when I get to the heel. I'm sure I'll figure it out, but I might put a lifeline in just in case. Now, I wanted to tell you about one of my favourite magazines, and this is yarn related, I promise. The Simple Things is a beautiful independent magazine published in the UK by Iceberg Press. This isn't an ad. I subscribe to the Simple Things magazine and I just love it. It focuses on taking time to live well and is all about celebrating the small joys in life, like enjoying a cup of tea, baking, spending time outdoors, and finding satisfaction in everyday tasks. Each issue is beautifully designed and it's filled with stunning photography and illustrations, making it a joy to read from cover to cover. So my subscription is £15 for 3 months. And when my January issue came, I was delighted to discover that it was called Yarn. If I'm honest, there isn't much yarn content in the magazine, but the little segments about a treasured crochet blanket and a colourwork knitted jumper are very sweet. There are also some recipes I really want to try, like Tunisian cake, which is apparently gluten free, boozy rice pudding, and Swedish toffee. And there's also a little almanac section for January, which I love. February's copy has just dropped through the letterbox and is called Glimmer, so I'm looking forward to curling up with a mug of Horlicks and my beautiful magazine once work is finished for the day. On to something that might be a little bit controversial. Recently, I have seen quite a few heated discussions about the difference between wool and yarn. So let's clear things up. Simply put, wool refers to the fibre that comes from sheep, although some people like to include other mammals as well, such as goats, yak, camels, alpaca, llama, etc. Personally, I prefer to use wool for fibre from a sheep and the names of the animals concerned when referring to their fibre. Yarn, on the other hand, is the spun thread created from fibres, which can include wool, but also include other materials such as cotton, bamboo, and acrylic. So all wool is yarn, but not all yarn is wool. However, some people argue that wool is also a generic term for any yarn here in the UK. I'm afraid that I'm with the people who disagree with this statement. If it grows on a plant or is man made, it definitely isn't wool. This could be confusing for people with allergies or people buying products made of different fibres. I've also seen some comments about the term yarn being an Americanism, and therefore people in the UK are refusing to use the word yarn. This is also untrue. The word yarn is actually a Middle English word and goes back as early as the 14th century. So, where do you stand on the wool versus yarn debate? Let me know in the comments. Let's move on to our yarn review. Today, I'm excited to share my thoughts on Yarnsmiths Create DK, which is an own brand yarn from Wool Warehouse. The yarn is 100% acrylic, making it both soft and durable and very easy to wash and dry. It comes in a stunning array of colours, from vibrant jewel tones to subtle earthy hues to beautiful pastels. I've used it quite a lot since Stylecraft Special DK dropped in quality, and I really love how it works up. Although it's a budget yarn and is currently on sale at £1.98 a ball, it feels like a sturdy DK and is ideal for high use items such as blankets and throws. I use my blankets all the time on the bottom of my bed, where there's usually a cat or dog or two curled up, so they get frequently washed and dried and come out as good as new. I'm not sure what the quality of Stylecraft Special DK is like now that they have moved their manufacturing back to the UK. I'm yet to try it, but if you're looking for a good, robust budget yarn, I highly recommend Yarnsmiths Create DK. Finally, my little yarn shop is open at www.wildmagicyarns.co.uk, and my February Yarnimal Crossing monthly yarn club will go on sale on February the 1st until February the 10th. The theme is Festivale, so shake your tail feathers and join me in the bright fiesta colours of this event by ordering some Festivale yarn of your own. And that's all for the first ever episode of the Wild Magic Yarns podcast. This is a bit of a short one because I wanted to experiment with the whole podcasting software. I've never done an audio podcast before. It's a lot more confusing than uploading a YouTube video. There are things that I don't understand. So I'm hoping this all goes well. So this is basically a little test episode and a sort of preview of things to come. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you enjoyed this little episode, be sure to subscribe to my podcast so you don't miss out on future yarny adventures. If you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover, feel free to leave a comment or send me a message. I'd love to interview some other crafty people as well, so if you'd like to be a part of the podcast, let me know. So, until next time, stay cozy, keep crafting, and let every stitch become a part of your story. Bye!
Welcome to the Wild Magic Yarns podcast, where threads and tales are freely cast. We stitch and weave with joy in mind, discovering crafts of every kind. So grab your needles and take a seat in our world where crafts and stories meet. Each episode's a journey grand in the land of yarn where magic's planned. So grab your needles and take a seat in our world where crafts and stories meet. Each episode's a journey grand in the land of yarn where magic's planned. Where magic's planned. Welcome to the Wild Magic Yarns podcast.